The sound you hear is what some experts claim to be a Bigfoot scream. Recorded in the state of Washington by a group of campers in 1971, it is regarded as the highest quality audio of the creature ever captured.
Hello! Welcome to Bigfoot Real Encounters. We're glad to have you stop by. We'd also like to take this time to invite you to share your encounter. You can send your stories to the email bfrealencounters@mail.com, where we will feature your story with all of the respect that it deserves. So send your stories in, bfrealencounters@mail.com. We look forward to hearing from you and your great stories soon. Hello everybody, I'd like to welcome everybody back to Bigfoot Real Encounters. Also like to welcome every new listener as well. This is Chris, your host. We're going to look into some other encounters today. And I hope that you all got my little message earlier in the week about checking out Scott Carpenter's video concerning what the Bigfoot really are. It's very important that we all get a grasp on this, that they are a people, not an animal, not a primate. The Native Americans always considered them another tribe of people and dealt with them in that fashion. Now, the Native Americans, as everybody knows, were very expert on animals. They were great hunters. They knew a person from an animal. And if we intend to get a grasp on reality and figure out what's going on with these things, we need to pay attention to the people who have dealt with them for centuries. Also, we need to tell our stories about our encounters with the Sasquatch people. A lot of you out there have had encounters and you're sitting on them and not telling anybody. Please consider sharing your encounters. We need every bit of information and detail that we the people can provide to each other so that we can have a well-rounded education on what we're dealing with these people. Okay, so send your encounters in. We'll keep it anonymous if you need that. We can just share your first name. We can make up a name. I can call you Bob, whatever you want. But consider sharing your stories. If not here, if you would rather do somebody else's website, go ahead. The important thing is to get your information out to the public so that we all can have a very good, detailed picture of the beings that we are dealing with who live next to us, very close to us on the edge of civilization. As we know and are finding out through these many encounters, you do not have to go deep 100 miles into the wilderness to have an encounter with the Sasquatch people or Bigfoot. Or Sabe, as we're finding out from other channels, that they may even call themselves. But they are people watchers and they come to us. So let's take a look at some another state. Let's look into the state of Illinois today. We're going to go back, let's see, October of 1978 and Madison County. Once again, I'm looking at old encounters off of the BFRO website. Wonderful database of stories and encounters on this website. All right, this reads, I've been wanting to talk about this for years, to give this report about what happened to me. I went and reported it when it happened to the local police, but they didn't make an official report because of the circumstances. This happened back in 1978. I was a teletype operator in the United States Air Force. I was a crypto guy. We monitored Russian and Chinese teletype. In 1978, I had just come out of tech school and went back home to southern Illinois where I was raised. The reason I found you, that being the BFRO website, was through some other guy's website who had something to do with Southern Illinois University in Edwardville. I grew up in East St. Louis, which is 4 miles south of Monk's Mound, Cahokia Mound. I went home on leave in 1978, the fall of 78. I have a top secret clearance. In fact, I went one above top secret my last year of the service overseas. So I was very leery of saying anything. I was just on my way up to visit a friend one morning on leave. I had my dad's car. He's at work. I'm driving up to the campus up on University Drive, and there's a little old church, St. Paul's United Church of Christ, right there on the front road, right before you head up into the bluffs, into the university proper. I had driven down there for some reason, just to see what was down there. I had never driven down there before. It was kind of a foggy morning, kind of misty and rainy. There's nothing behind this old church other than a bunch of hay fields. There were a bunch of hay rings where the guy had just drug through and done the hay thing. I'm driving down the road. I was going to turn around in the grass behind the church, and I see this bear way down on the dirt, and it's bent over, splashing water in a puddle in the middle of the road. As I pull down closer to this thing, it's not a bear, and it's huge. I bring my car within at least 10 yards of it, and then veer off into the field and get out with my door between me and the thing. And it stands up, and it's like 8 or 9 feet tall. It looked like a black humanoid. I grew up in southern Illinois. I'm a hunter. My dad was a hunter. I had a goose gun in the trunk. I got the gun out. Something in my head clicked, and I'm thinking, of course, there were all these stories about things up by Alton, Illinois, but I had never really heard anything about my area. But something in my head clicked. I remember hearing about Bigfoot in California, and I thought, this is one of those Bigfoots, and I'm going to wound this thing, and Barnum and Bailey, here I come. I shot off with this goose gun to the left of this thing, and it didn't move. And then I shot off to the right, and it didn't move again. Something inside of me said, you can't hurt this thing, and if you try to hurt it, it's only going to hurt you. And with that, it shrugged what looked like its shoulders at me, and it binged off into the woods that are just north of that road. And each one of its leaps, binges, jumps, whatever it was 15 to 20 feet at a time, and it was gone. Well, I completely freaked out. I went into the local gas station and washed my face off, and I drove right into Edwardsville and to the Madison County Sheriff's Office. And there was an old-time deputy, and he looked at me. I told him the whole thing, and he said, you know, I would think you were crazy or on drugs if it weren't for the fact that I have heard this same story in the last couple of weeks, and 3 of them were from good friends of mine who were out hunting and saw the same thing you did. If I was you, knowing the kind of job you got, and you're getting ready to do what I wouldn't tell anybody about this for a long time, and you'd be a lot better off. And that was probably the most sound advice I ever got, because if I had told somebody about this, they would have jerked my clearance and messed with me all around in the Air Force. Wow, how about that encounter, folks? He saw this thing out there, and he had an inkling that it was a Bigfoot, and he grabs a goose gun. Now, a goose gun is a very long-barreled shotgun, which holds the pattern of the BBs because of the long barrel off a very long distance, so that you can actually shoot the geese out of the air, and they will withstand a very powerful load. And it didn't even bother that creature. And the creature somehow conveyed the message to him that that's not going to hurt him, and that the creature just might hurt him instead. I think I'd have been in my car speeding out of the way at that point. I tell you what, my goodness. But there you go. What a story, huh? And of course, it's not just a story. I used the word story, but it's an encounter. And we take people at their word here on this channel, because this is evidence. People's testimony is evidence. So, wow, that's really something else. Now, before we take a look at some other encounters that have taken place in Illinois, I'd like to take a moment to encourage you to check out the links below in the description, and like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Would really appreciate it. If you think these stories are worth getting out to the public, like and subscribe and interact as far as comment are concerned. This will let the YouTube algorithms and their automated systems promote and make this video visible to other folks, and have it appear in search engines and such, so that this gets out and grows and we can get these stories around. I would really appreciate it, and maybe some of you folks might as well. And if you've had an encounter, and I know some of you out there listening to me for a while have had encounters, and send them in. Don't hold on to them. I would encourage you to. So without any further ado, as the saying goes, let's look into some other stories here. Now, here I have found an interesting one from back in 1967 in Cook County, Illinois. Let's see what this one has to say. It reads, I was taking a bike ride along Des Plaines River in August of 1967. I was very tired, so I sat down on this fallen log and was watching the river. Across the river, in the dark shadows of the forest, a shadowy figure emerged. I watched it closely while I was splashing in the water, like it was looking for freshwater clams or crayfish. It scared me, because it was covered with a thick coat of hair like an ape. It resembled a cross between an ape and a caveman. As I watched it through the ragweed and cattails which hid me, I cleared my throat and coughed. It looked all around and seemed to be agitated. I kept sitting on the log because I lost sight of the creature. All of a sudden, 3 huge rocks were tossed from the river toward me. They were the size of throw pillows. Moved out with my bike around the cattail blind and saw it face to face. I yelled, "Wow!" It was moving into the cattails, for it crossed the river without a sound. Upon seeing me, it picked up more rocks and hurled them at me. It was muscular, black-brown in color, with mud on its face, very wrinkled skin. It had bulging eyes and a pushed-in nose. I ran as fast as I could along the game trail along the river. As I ran, I heard a howl that sounded like an air raid siren. As I ran, I heard screaming and saw shadowy figures on the other side of the river moving. Bigfoots plural? I got to the parking lot on East River Road and left. Well, I don't blame you. I would have got out of there also. I mean, to see one face to face is one thing, and it's throwing rocks, and then you hear other ones screaming, and you see a bunch of shadowy figures. Yeah, I would have made tracks and got out of there also. My goodness, that is time to leave. These Sasquatch people, like Scott Carpenter says, they have their own rules and their own way of doing things. And when they come into an area, it's just time to leave. I mean, if you want to talk and say, oh, hey, sorry, folks, I didn't know you were going to be here, I'll leave. I mean, go ahead and do that. But, and then don't run, you know. But, you know, it's just time to leave. Let them have their way. My goodness. But that's scary stuff. And that was back in 1967. Long before most people really knew anything or even heard about it. I mean, that was the year, I believe, that the Patterson-Gimlin footage was taken. So, pretty much basically the year that maybe the bursting onto this public scene of the Bigfoot phenomena was about to begin. So I like reading these older tales and stories of this, which it's less likely that people copy other people's stories. It just seems more credible to me. But yet, if you have an encounter and you send it in, we will take you at your word, because people, well, the impression is that you're taking a risk by coming forward with these stories, which it really isn't, because I mean, if people make fun of you, it's just they're making fun. I mean, whatever. That type of thing never bothered me, but it does bother some folks. I mean, in this day and age, people have forgotten that old saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but name calling, that never hurt me. Maybe that's something we need to remember as far as the Sasquatch stories and encounters are concerned. If you have something to tell and you're telling a story and people don't believe you, you need to stand up and say, hey, I'm telling you like it is. Don't call me a liar. All right, let's see if we can find another one here. Okay, and this other story here is from Fulton County, Illinois. Let me see here. Back in 2010. Okay, that's not too long ago, 10 years ago. Now this one reads, let me get a better spot here where I can read it better. After a late concert at the Square in Canton, Illinois, my friend was bicycling home and turning right into the parking lot that leads past a shed, fence, and dumpster. Hearing a shuffling bang noise near the dumpster, she slowed her bike and began looking. Behind the shed was more than a noise, a shadowy Sasquatch shape. His puffy balloon feet, as she described it, held up a stocky, not-so-tall frame about 6 feet. Startled, it turned and walked into the bushes, moving branches to get into the woods. This was a thinly wooded area, and on the other side, a cornfield. So freaked out, she said, "What is that?" and sped right home and told me. I could tell she was worried, and by her description, this did happen. We discussed the situation further for about 5 minutes, then decided I should go check it out. She locked the doors, and I got on my bike. I sped around the corner, keeping my pedals quiet. There was the noise. I pulled over behind a pine tree and quietly snuck up beside the fence, staying low. At the minute I was ready, I turned on the flashlight under the fence. No feet were there. But that noise, was it inside the dumpster? So I slowly snuck around the corner. Only one cover of the 4 covers was open on the dumpster. So when I was ready, I shone the light through it. A small coon was trapped. Unable to climb out of an almost empty dumpster, it was out of breath and sad looking. So I put small cans and an old sign in to give it a ladder out. I went back later that evening and the coon was out, and to check the shadows around there. We think it heard the coon also, and may have been trying to find a way inside. We don't know if it was hungry or just trying to help the coon out. We still walk our Chihuahua, Susie, near there. Not quite so close to that shed anymore. Notes. It was definitely walking on 2 legs. 2, you do not want to see it. 3, hoppy, startled, quick walk. 4, stocky, muscly. 5, black to blend with darkness. 6, it was probably curious. 7, they just want to be left alone. There was also some loud screams that had been heard previously. Now that's really something else. That's what I have been saying in recent videos, that they do come up to society. And here was one messing in a dumpster. And we've heard other stories of the Sasquatch getting into dumpsters. We don't know what they're in there for. Maybe they're looking for food or souvenirs. Now, it just came to my mind, and I can't remember where I had read this. It was years ago. It must have been on a website where people have found small teepee structures, maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet tall, and in the middle of the woods, of course. And inside these teepee structures were like mostly empty toothpaste tube, a doll, and other various objects like this that seemed to be like souvenirs that the Sasquatch have taken from people's property and brought them in there. That's kind of strange that they would do something like this, but the Sasquatch in general do present strange behavior. Well, strange to us. It's quite normal to them, I'm sure. But once again, here's an encounter with Sasquatch coming to us, our neck of the woods, so to speak, our concrete jungle, if you will, messing around in a dumpster. And they have been reported in dumpsters in a lot of areas, and in some resort areas, some mountainous resort areas, where they've become a nuisance and scaring people. And so the locals put out bear alerts. Well, they know better, but like Scott Carpenter has said recently, just behave as you would if you come across one. Behave as if you had come across a bear. Be that cautious and get out of there. So I guess to put out a bear alert wouldn't make sense for people to be that cautious. So thanks again for clicking on my channel. Like, share, subscribe, and send in your encounters. I do like to read these different encounters off of the BFRO website. It's public domain. These have been sitting there for years, and I guess we're giving them a little bit of publicity. But I want to hear from you. Your encounter needs to be heard. And I won't leave out any details because I think it might be too controversial or might offend people. I will read your story verbatim other than cuss words. Okay? So send it in. We'll get your story out there. Alright? Thanks once again. We'll see you in the next one. Once again, another great story. Thanks for tuning in. Please share your encounter. Email us, bfrealencounters@mail.com. Your story is very important. We will treat it with the respect that it deserves. Also, Be sure to smash the like button, share, and subscribe. Thanks once again. We look forward to hearing from you soon. Watch out for our next video. Maybe we'll feature yours. Have a great day.